Okay, now we're going to get into some copy, paste, moving, shortcuts, things like this. So first of all, sorry about the dogs. We'll just go and open a Windows File Explorer window here so that we can do some introductions. So as I'm sure you all know, you can select folders, files, anything, and copy and paste them from one location to another. This could be within your computer or between your computer and hard drives or SSD drives and USB sticks and things like that. So I'll just go through a few quick tricks for you. And to begin with, we're just going to ungroup this window so that it's all a big mess. The first way that I think a lot of people are probably familiar with is just dragging a box. So just note that when you're dragging a box, you can't click on a file and try to drag. That might move it. So you see if I try to click on this one and drag, it kind of starts to move it. But in general, if you find kind of an empty space somewhere between these files, you can start to drag a box. And wherever you drag, it'll kind of select everything that's in that area. And so you'll see that this one got selected as well because the text is a little bit long and it pushed it a little bit down. However, there's a few other ways that you might want to do this. And so the next one is to get the first item and then select all the way to the last item. So to do this, I'm going to select the first item that I want to copy. So let's say it's this picture. I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard and I'm going to select the last item that I want to copy. And that's going to select everything between the first picture or the first file or folder and the last file or folder. It's going to select everything in between. All right, but there's another way to do that, and that's using your keyboard. So forget the mouse. I'm going to select the first picture I want, then I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to click the right arrow key on my keyboard, and that will just keep selecting things to the right. So this is an easy way to do it if you're just using your keyboard or your hand is not free and you're going to do this quickly just on keyboard and mouse. If I go down, it does exactly what you would think. It goes down one file to the next file, straight below it, and selects everything in between. I haven't let go of Shift yet. I'm still holding Shift. When I let go of Shift, anything there is now selected and ready to be copied, pasted, or moved. A couple other little tricks. What if I want to select just a couple things? So I could actually select this. Now I'm going to, instead of holding Shift, I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to click, 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 click. And I can even draw boxes. And because I've got Control held down, it's letting me select things randomly. Now if I let Control and click something else, all of those selections are gone. So that is something you have to be careful about. If you're painstakingly going through a large folder, selecting here and there, you know, it's easy to accidentally not hold Control, or you click something else and you've accidentally moved everything over. There's another little accident that can happen with Control, and I'll show you that right now. If you select an item and you hold Control and then you click and hold and drag, you'll notice that it says copy to downloads. So what I've just done is I've just created a copy of that folder and a photo, and you can see it says copy there below. Now, this isn't so bad for just one case. You know, if I'm like, oh man, I really need a second photo of this to work on. Boom, there we go. I've got a second photo. It's that fast. Just hold Control and drag to within the same folder. That's how quickly you can create a copy of a file. However, imagine if you have a bunch of stuff selected and you're holding Control and you're trying to select individual items, and then you accidentally, instead of clicking once, you kind of click and drag a little bit, and then you accidentally let go, and you'll see it says 20 things I'm about to copy. So this can happen fairly frequently when you're using this method. And if you do that, oh my gosh, I've just created a copy of everything, and that's, oh no. Now the good news is everything that you've just copied is still selected. If you don't touch anything, you can just press delete on your keyboard and it'll delete all those copies. But what if you accidentally do that? Oh, now I've got a copy of everything. I've got to go through it. Nope. Calm down. Control Z on your keyboard to undo the thing that you just did. So Control Z will continue to undo your mistakes for a while. It can't go forever, but like I've just pressed Control Z a few times and I've undone all of those copies that I've just made. So that's just something to be aware of. And is there any other tricks when it comes to selecting? Oh, I'll just do the copy and paste tricks now. So in terms of moving your files around, One of the best tricks that you can do is open the two destinations that you want and set them side by side. I do this all the time to make sure I know where I'm copying from and where I'm copying to. So I have my two File Explorer windows, and I'd put, where I want to copy from on one side and where I want to copy to on the other. And so then I can actually just Control C to copy, or right click, copy, or home, copy. All three of these do the same thing. So this copy button here, Control C on the keyboard, or right click, copy. All of that does the same thing. And it copies it to a magical place we call the clipboard. So the clipboard, it's just a name I want you to remember because it will come up in other programs. The clipboard is temporarily holding that thing in memory. If I click on this and I click Control C, I don't see anything, I don't get any visual cue that anything has happened, but it has been copied to the clipboard. Which means if I come over here and I Control V, then it's pasted there. And so it looks a bit different, but if I change the view, you'll see it's the same picture. So that's one way to do it. Select it over here, Control C, click over here, Control V. So you have to tell it where you want it to go. So you have to click where you want to copy and then click where you want to paste. And again, there's multiple ways to do this. So I can copy this shell, right click, paste, and you'll see here it's saying, hey, that already has a file by the same name. So you have a few different options. You can replace this file. So if I replace it, it's just going to overwrite this image with the new one. Or I can skip it, which means it doesn't copy this file. Or I can compare info for both. This is useful if you're doing lots of folders and you want to see them side by side. So if you have a lot of folders, files that are the same, you want to compare, which one is actually the right one. You can choose which one to keep. So if I say, no, I want to keep the files that are over here in downloads. Or, no, actually, I want to keep the file that's over here, where I'm the destination folder, where I'm going to paste it. And if you select both, no problem. Actually, if you select both, it's just going to come in like this, and it's going to give it a little number 2 at the end of the file name. So that's just some little interesting things about copying things with the same name. If I try it again, and I say, no, I don't want to replace it, I don't want to skip it, I want to have both. So I check, continue, and now it becomes number 3. So this one doesn't get a number 1, it's just the default name, and then number 2, number 3, so on. However, you can also, again, as with computers, there's always more than one way to do it. So if I'm over here, again, with copy, I have this option up here. I can just select copy. You can also select more than one thing to copy, right? So I can select 3 different things by holding Control, and then copy, and then paste those things over here, right? For pasting, you can do it the same. I can click Paste up here, and you'll notice, I'm just going to delete all these for a second. If I copy this shell, and I paste it, and I want to paste it here, but then I copy this elephant, and then I paste over here, only the elephant gets copied. So whatever you have copied is living in your clipboard memory waiting to be pasted. And if you copy something else, the previous thing is no longer waiting in the clipboard. So the clipboard can only hold one copy at a time. Whether it's 20 files, 1,000 files, or one file, it doesn't matter. It can only hold one copy at a time. So if I copy this, and then I copy this, only the elephant is copied. Right? So one by one. If you want to get them all, that's not a problem. Copy. And then over here, paste. So the shortcuts for these, copy is going to create a duplicate. That is Control C. And paste, to put it somewhere, is Control V. And again, both of these are accessible from the right-click menu as well. So I can right-click on something and copy it. And then I can right-click where I want to put it and paste it. That will create a copy. If I want to move it, what we're looking for is cut. So in this case, I would use this button here, cut, and you'll see it goes gray. Once something is cut, it goes gray. It's still there. It hasn't moved anywhere. I have to paste it somewhere else for it to actually leave the original spot. So if I now come over here and click paste, there it goes. It's moved from here to here. Another way to do that is by dragging. Now, normally, when you drag it, it's going to move it. But you'll notice that in this case, it actually created a copy. And in this case, there was nothing there, right? So it's no file conflict. I don't have to worry about the names. This is 2 different drives. One is on drive D and one is on drive C. When you drag and drop from a different drive to a different location, it will, by default, create a copy. If you're within your computer, so for example, let's say on the desktop, if I was to drag this to the desktop, it's going to move it to the desktop. So that's a cut to the desktop. And you see then it's gone from my downloads folder. If I go back here, it says move to downloads. So when anything within the same hard drive on your computer, so my desktop and my downloads are both within the main C drive, that when you click and you drag and drop, that will move it. But anything from an external drive or a second drive in your computer, whether it's a USB, a flash drive, or an external hard drive, selecting a bunch of things and dragging them will by default create a copy. And again, with all of those things, you can do more than one, right? So you can move two. I can move them back. Those are I've moved it onto an application by accident. Be careful about that. You want to put them in the empty spaces. So that's how you copy, paste, move, and everything. And then there's a few other little shortcuts at the top here. So this move to would allow you to kind of, instead of copying and pasting, it's kind of like opening up a menu to let you do the same thing. So I could select these music files, let's say, just by holding Control to get those different music files, and then decide I want to move them to my music folder, and then they just go. And so now they're over here in this music folder. If I wanted to move them somewhere else that wasn't in this quick list, I can choose the location, and it's going to pop up with this little file tree explorer. Now, don't be alarmed about the way these look. Windows is always updating them, and they change regularly. So it might look different, but the function is still the same. So here I would be enabled to kind of go in and decide where do I want to put these folders. And wherever I click Move, it's going to go there. So that's copying, pasting, moving, cutting, and so on. And so I'll just remind everybody again, those shortcuts, which are very useful. To copy something, Control-C, and it can be done for one thing or many things. Control-C on your keyboard. That is the same as right-click, copy, or the same as clicking up here, copy. To paste something, it's going to be Control-V. So Control-V will paste. If you have files with the same name, you will get this notification. In this case, I can choose to replace it, which means the file that I've copied will overwrite and replace the file where I'm pasting it that has the same name. If I skip it, it won't copy or cut it. It will just leave it where it is, and it will keep the destination file unchanged. And if I want to see both side by side, I can click on that, and it will give me the option to select which one I want. And if you have a lot of files, you'll see a long list here that you can scroll through. You can also choose down here if you want to just go ahead and set them to skip. If there's a long list, you can just do that and continue, and it will automatically skip them. That's the same as pressing this button. If you don't see these details, just check this little thing here. Sometimes it's fewer details or more details that you can open or close. A couple other useful tricks is cutting. So if I don't want to create a copy, I want to move them, then I select what I want, and instead of pressing Control-C, I press Control-X. And when you cut something, they're going to go gray until you paste it. I'll give you an example of how to break this. Is if I was to now copy this picture, Control-C, you'll see how those pictures now are no longer gray? That's because the clipboard has forgotten that I just cut those pictures. Cut isn't complete until you paste somewhere. Copy isn't complete until you paste somewhere. It just lives in the clipboard temporarily until you paste them at your destination location. So here I can select this one. I'm going to hold Shift and select to here. So I'm going to get that whole group, and I'm going to cut. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to teach you guys one other little trick. I actually want to get from there to there, but I don't want this thing. This is an installation file for a chatting software, so I don't want that. So I'm actually, now that I've held Shift, so I select the first file I want, I hold Shift, and I select the last file. Now that I've done that, I'm going to actually switch what I'm holding to Control to deselect just one of these things. And you'll see that, again, by holding Control, I can add random things, but I can also remove things that I don't want from that selection. So these are just useful little tips and tricks on when you're copying and pasting and moving things around. So now I'm going to Control-X to cut this group, and you'll see that those things now became grayed out while everything else has remained bright. And I can even deselect them. I can deselect my selection. You'll see they're still a bit grayed out. Then I come over here, Control-V to paste, and they're going to move from this location to that location. So over here, I'm going to select them, Control-X, and put them back over here in our downloads folder. If you do this and they're not in order, oftentimes they'll come up in the bottom. There's a few things you can do. You can right-click Refresh. That'll reset it, or you can press F5 on your keyboard. That's the same as Refresh. And so now everything will be sorted and organized again. And then the last little helpful shortcut here is going to be Control-A to select all. And so if I needed everything in this but not these 4 folders, I could just save myself time, Control A, and then hold Control and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and deselect those. Now I've got everything except for those 4 folders. So using Select All, Control A, is a very useful trick as well, and that's the same as pressing this. You can also invert the selection. So let's say I wanted to get everything except I don't want this, I don't want this, and I don't want this. Then I can just go Invert Selection here. Boom, and it's going to select everything except for those things that I selected. So those are some useful little tricks that you can do up here. And again, if by accident you and you create some copies that you didn't want, Control Z to undo, or undo copy. Right click, undo copy. Same thing. Okay, that was a little bit of a long one. Sorry about that.